Have you fired us up, Chris?
You are
Yep.
fired up.
Oh, I guess we're gonna turn the
Be
mic.
sure and turn your mics on, push them to red.
Usually keep mine off.
You got to vote.
We got quiet.
Mm-hmm.
The quiet before the storm.
We're going to call the meeting to order. All those who care to, please stand for the prayer, pledge allegiance. Mr. Cameron.
Let us pray. Lord and Father, we just thank you for this day and thank you for the sunshine. Thank you for the warmth, and Lord, we just thank you for the city and all that you're doing, God. We just pray tonight, Lord, that you just be with us as we navigate through this agenda. Be with those that are sick and have been out with COVID or health-related issues. Be with us and guide us tonight in all we do and say. In Jesus' name, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This time I will open citizen participation. Anyone wishing to speak on anything not on the agenda, you have a limit to 3 minutes. If you would come to the podium and give your name and address, please. Seeing none, I will close citizens' participation. Moving on to the consent agenda, I welcome the council to ask any questions or comments about items 1 through 4 on the agenda. I need a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstain? Motion passes 5-0. Board, commission, and committee schedule. City Council special session will be February 22nd, 2022 at the Community Center on Miller Road. The council meeting for March 1 has been canceled. Board of Adjustment meeting will be March 3rd, 2022. Planning and zoning meeting will be March 7th, 2022. And the next city council meeting would be March 15th, 2022, and it will be back here. Old business and table items. Moving on to old business, I need a motion and a second for the reading of Bill 22-04 by title only.
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Laura, will you read the ordinance by title, please?
An ordinance of the City Council amending Title I, Chapter 120, City Administrator Duties.
Staff presented this item to the council in the past, and hopefully council had an opportunity to get any questions answered. So unless there's any other updates from staff on this item or council has any questions or discussion, will we move to final passage. I now need a motion and a second for final passage of Bill 22-04.
Motion.
Second.
Be a roll call vote
We'll do digital.
on the computers. Remember to hit refresh and cast your ballot and submit the vote.
Make sure you read what the vote is.
There we go.
Ordinance passes with 5-0 votes. I need a motion and a second for the first reading of Bill 22-05 by title only.
Motion.
Second.
Have a motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. Motion passes 5-0. Laura, will you read the ordinance by title, please?
An ordinance of the City Council approving amendment of the zoning code and official map by changing the classification of approximately 15.09 acres located at the 6800 block of South Farm Road 89 from agricultural AG to high-density single-family residential R1H.
Thank you. Staff is here to give an overview. Karen?
Thank you. Karen Haynes, Assistant Builds Administrator. Old Savannah LLC has applied for the rezone of approximately 15.09 acres of land located at 6800 block of South Farm Road 89 from agricultural to high-density single-family residential. The parcel is currently vacant and was annexed into the city in January of this year. The applicant owns the parcel directly to the east, which is also under consideration for rezone this evening. The applicant intends to utilize the parcels for a later phase of the Old Savannah subdivision. The rezone is consistent with the goals and objectives of the comp plan, as well as the trend of development in the area. The parcel does not contain any floodplain areas. It does contain one identified sinkhole. All development will be in accordance with section 410-700 of the Sinkhole and Karst Features Ordinance. Staff is recommending approval of the rezone.
Thank you. Any questions from council?
Do you have somebody speaking against and someone in favor?
Okay. Citizen comments, I will start with those in opposition and then move to those in favor. Brian Saunders. Please give your please give your name and address.
My name is Brian E. Saunders, and I'm transitioning my wife and I to 1700 Terrell Valley Drive, which is south of this property. I begin with complimenting the team here for something I'm not used to. I do have a background in construction management. I'm employed by Springfield Public Schools, and to have a prayer at the beginning was very refreshing. As a Christian man, I compliment you on that. Mm-hmm. Additionally, I also compliment the city for your good documentation online, being able to find information very quickly. All we have busy lives. I did attend the virtual planning and zoning meeting. I found that a little bit frustrating. Not being able to operate my iPhone from my residence, trying to get into the meeting, it was frustrating. I actually was muted and accused of being uncivil when I was just trying to demonstrate a passion for the item here for both parcels. For item 2205 and 2206, I've also learned that you have to speak for or against. At the time I was neutral, so that contributed to me losing an opportunity to speak. But at the preface, David, you made a comment about I should have seen the space with which you meet before, which was downtown, is how I begin, is that part of the reason why your good neighbors in Christian County to the south buy parcels of land, because we want a little bit more space. Mm-hmm. We want to be able to breathe, see, and be able to spread out and have a few acres. And as I learned by your good documentation online, just 2 months ago, that was Greene County, and that was agricultural. And in January, that became annexed into the city, and now it is part of the City of Republic. That's great. And then 1 month later, now you're considering going from agricultural next to rural residential to high density. And that's my objection. I was neutral before, but now I speak against it and disfavor because I think it's inconsistent and inconsiderate to your neighbors to the south, which I understand you do have part of the City of Republic in Christian County as well. So that's what I'm asking. We had an opportunity to listen to part of the discussion at the planning and zoning meeting about it meets the minimum requirements for storm water. You had a traffic study and such as that, and that's fine. But do we want to pursue a change from agricultural historically forever to forever by the documents I read? Once it's determined that it changes to a zoning that is from, as your words, this point forward. So it'll be forever from agricultural to high density, and that's my concern. You have high Savannah, I see, and I don't want to belittle a guy or a company from developing land, but I just ask for sensitivity since it was and is currently agricultural. You're about to consider changing it to high density, and that's my concern as a good neighbor. Again, myself and a lady who spoke at the online planning and zoning had similar sensitivities. because she lives directly across the street from this, as I remember in that discussion. So now she's gonna be looking at the way I'm assuming that it will be developed, because it was mentioned during the meeting that the County Line Road won't allow any ingress or egress in that. It would have to be off of Williamsburg, I believe. So that means it will probably have backyards looking onto the residences that are south. So I shared that with the other ladies concerned and others, and I heard during the meeting there were several people trying to attend that meeting, assuming that it was gonna be at, I assume, this location, and it was changed to online, so they didn't have an opportunity to speak. So that's all I ask, is that in your consideration to be sensitive to your good neighbors, new neighbors, myself and my wife plan on being there. We love what we see in Republic, moving from the Republic, Springfield area to Republic, but we'd like to see a little more consideration on changing it from agricultural in 2 months, annexing it, and then into high density. So, any questions of me? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Saunders.
Can I ask you guys a question? I think as I see Republic grow and as people are moving in, and I love that, I love the progress of it. But is there a better way? I don't know if this is time for discussion, to communicate with people moving in, like working with realtors. I know I've discussed it with Andrew, but I understand the frustration of owning a piece of land and then all of a sudden it being annexed in and then it being changed from agriculture to developmental, or I didn't say that right. But anyways, is there a better way we can communicate with people or work with realtors so they can understand what the goal of the city is? Does that make sense?
Yes, it's a great question. So what the city does is it goes through a lengthy comprehensive planning process that we brought before council that asks them to approve the land use and the long-term comprehensive plan that outlines where the growth and development of the community would be. So a lot of that of where you can see where the city's planned growth and development is outlined in the comprehensive plan. And we're supposed to update those. And the last time the city had done that was in 1988, and it was approved last year in 2021. So that's probably the first place, obviously, is to contact the city as to where do you see the growth and development of the community going. So if you look out into this particular area, and just on the agricultural clarification, is that all property comes in as agricultural no matter what. So most people, for tax purposes, do not rezone their property to residential way in advance. They leave it as ag for tax purposes. But on the master comprehensive plan, it's outlined that this is part of the intended land use of the area based upon the surrounding land use, because there is transitional planning that goes into play. It's like one of the messages on another parcel. It could very easily be multifamily transitioning from large scale lots to a multifamily down to smaller residential areas too. So there are ways, it could almost actually be a multifamily site as well. So I was seeing it as that high density use could be something different. So, but to answer the question is what's available to them, I would always encourage someone when looking to buy property or to do that, what is the overall intention? Where is your utilities located? Because I look out at Brookline, just like that same area, the city's invested $12 million widening the highway. You can see that that's the growth and development. When you look at Savannah across the street and look at that, you can see the trend of what that's doing. Now, granted, like the gentleman stated, it was ag at one time. A lot of folks, or not, I'm sorry, it wasn't even in the city. If it's contiguous to the city, it has the potential, meaning contiguous meaning right up against it. So if there's a lot in between it, it necessarily cannot come to the city. But once it touches the city, the property owner has the right to approach us to say, I want to become part of the city. So the city can't necessarily deny that if they're contiguous. In fact, that's kind of the best way to annex versus taking property. We all know that will not work. So in that aspect of the process, I guess you will, there is an opportunity to contact the city to see what the plan is.
David, can I offer an opportunity for additional clarity?
I'll have to give the floor to the mayor. I don't have the floor.
So that was the frustration I had with the plan and zoning. A healthy dialogue allows for more transition and congeniality of discussion. And when you cut a speaker off, I really wanted to add to what you're saying, which really adds to my concern. I'm not against development, it's just how the city decides it. And if I don't have an opportunity to speak, I think there's an unfairness on the part of the citizens when you invite us to come and speak and then you cut us off.
Mr. Mayor. So, Mr. Saunders, I'm the way the order works, even in Robert's rule, is if you can approach the podium and the mayor can give you the floor. It's just the way, because I have the floor, it's not trying to be disrespectful. It's trying to answer that question. It's not to try to cut off and create dialogue. It's just, I want to answer the councilwoman's question. And if there's a question for that, but interjecting.
I'm not in disagreement with that. There's more to offer here to I'm not against development. May I continue a brief speak?
Well, right at this point, it's been set that you have a 3-minute time to speak. And you did use little over your 3 minutes. And,
And I tried to keep it brief to be
Right.
around 3 minutes, but you've offered in the continuous dialogue between Mr. Cameron and Ms. Mitchell, additional information, and I would like an opportunity to bounce off of that for the benefit of those here and for the future. This, like I said, this is a forever decision. Once you make the decision to possibly go to high density, it's forever. And so I'm limited to 3 minutes. There's an unfairness in your practice and your policy.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Saunders, we have to read this 2 readings, so this is not the first only meeting we discuss it. So we have to it actually has to be read a second time and voted on a second time. So the first one is just to discuss it. And there is a second reading that will be handled next Tuesday night at 6 o'clock, and you'll be provided the opportunity at the same time to provide additional comment and feedback based upon what you heard to do that. And so the mayor will be very accommodating to that, understanding that there's more to ask us questions in between now, the first reading and the second read, to build on that. So you'd be given the same opportunity. So tonight, they're not approving the forever read. So right now, what they're doing is the first reading of it, then there's a second read that's required by state statute.
Is there further discussion and dialogue on this after this meeting, between this and the next meeting?
No, there is not.
So there wouldn't be anything that because I would like to then prepare a dialogue and additional questions, like you say, and I appreciate that opportunity to be prepared. I just want to know if there's anything else that I might want to hear or listen or look up, read online that I could add to the dialogue I want to prepare.
No, but if you have questions between this read and the second read, you're more welcome to contact staff that are working on the measure to ask those questions. But absolutely, you'll be provided the opportunity to come back and speak in opposition at the second read as well.
It'll be held at the community center.
yes. It'll be at the community center on Miller Road. And,
And Mr. Mayor, is that March 15th?
No, it'll be February 22nd. We have a special meeting, so that'll be 1 week from tonight. But Mr. Saunders, I assure you, we'll make sure that address and the location and it's well marked so that it's easier to find that.
That'll be on site, not online.
It'll be on site, yes.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
You bet.
you're welcome. Is there anyone else that would like to speak against this?
Mr. Wynn, I think, is speaking in favor.
Not, I will continue on to those who are for. Mr. Chris Wynn, please come to the podium. Give your name and address, please.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Chris Wynn. I'm a civil engineer with CJW Transportation Consultants, and I'm representing the developer, Mr. Mike Seitz, on this phase, as well as phases 1, 2, and 3 that we've previously brought to the city. To speak to the process a little bit, I know this phase is a little bit further south than the other phases and is a little more impactful to the residents to the south and along Terrell Valley, but each phase of this, we've been here, this is the 4th phase. Each phase we have brought into the city through annexation, and we have rezoned to high density going through the process, and not once has a resident come to speak up against this project. And for as far as phase 4 annexation, we didn't have anyone speak in opposition either. So this is the first time we have heard anything or anyone speak up against our project as we've moved forward through this project, through this process. What we're here tonight is to annex this from agricultural to R1 high density residential. As part of this process, the city has requested us to do a traffic study, which we have performed. It's been reviewed by the city engineers and approved. As the speaker that spoke last, he mentioned that there is no access to County Line Road. We're proposing 3 accesses total, 2 to Williamsburg Walk, 1 that'll line up with the access coming out of the Schuler Ridge, and then 1 coming out of phase 3, and then 1 onto Farm Road 89, but there will be no direct access to Farm Road 194. To speak about the volume of traffic that's coming out of here, we're proposing 101 new lots between this case and the next case that you'll hear, approximately about 30 acres total. So in the peak PM hour, which is the highest amount of traffic that you're going to see, there's approximately 100 new trips. That would be 63 trips coming into the development, and then about 37 trips leaving the development. All intersections reviewed as part of this traffic study had a level of service of A, which is the highest level of service for a intersection. So we don't see any negative impact to the surrounding roadways by this development. A lot of these aspects will be discussed more as we go into platting, which will be the next step. We'll be in front of you guys for preliminary plat, but then we'll be submitting plans to the city for review, city staff. But I know that I overheard people talking before this meeting, and there was some concern about stormwater. There will be a detention basin. There'll actually be two common areas, one for the sinkhole, and then one larger basin, then a smaller basin. So we will be taking care of our stormwater. But in general, this is just an extension of what we've done on phase 1, 2, and 3. It's been successful. I know that the city of Republic is growing rapidly. You got Amazon, you've got Convoy of Hope, a lot of new businesses coming in along the highway. So there's the need for this kind of housing, and that's our intention. So if you guys got any questions for me, I'll be here to answer them. And if the public has any questions, I'd also be willing to answer those questions as well.
All right, thank you, Mr. Wynn.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wants to speak in favor of this? Seeing none, I will close citizen participation. And remember, this is the first read, so if you have any questions, please get with staff before the next meeting. Okay. Moving on to 22-06. I need a motion and a second for the first read of Bill 2206 by title only.
Motion.
Second.
Have a motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Passes 5-0. Laura, will you please read the ordinance by title?
An ordinance of the City Council approving amendment of the zoning code and official map by changing the classification of approximately 7.86 acres located at the 8,000 block of West Farm Road 194 from the lakes at Schuler Ridge Plan Development District, PDD, to high-density, single-family residential R1H.
Thank you. Staff is here to give an interview. Karen?
Thank you, Mayor. As previously stated, this is the second parcel in relation to the Old Savannah Phase 4 rezone. This particular parcel is 7.86 acres of land at the 8,000 block of West Farm Road 194. We are potentially rezoning this from the Schuler Ridge Planned Development District, which is directly north, to high-density, single-family residential. The applicant owns the parcel directly to the west, which is the parcel that we were just discussing. Again, their intention is to develop these two parcels together for Old Savannah Phase 4. As was previously mentioned, this rezone is consistent with the goals and objectives of the city's comprehensive plan, as well as the trend of development in this particular area. Staff does analyze several different key components for rezone, including our ability to serve with water, sewer, and transportation. The city can adequately serve a potential development at this location with our water and sewer systems. As was previously mentioned, a traffic study was performed for this rezone and didn't result in substantial improvements to the highway sector. The parcel does not contain any floodplain areas, and it does not contain any identified sinkholes. Staff is recommending approval of the rezone.
Thank you. Any questions from council?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I did have a council. Did we have anyone else that was that had some confusion in between the Zoom meeting and meeting in person that called afterwards that was not able to speak to planning and zoning?
No, to my recollection, we've not had any calls between the Zoom meeting on the 7th and today.
And now. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Could you clarify? You know, the high density, single family residential. I mean, how's
Yes.
that structured?
So we actually have 3 different single-family residential zoning districts. We have a low density, a medium density, and a high density. The difference between these zoning designations for single family is a difference of 1,000 and 2,000 square feet. So for high density, we're looking at a total square footage, a minimum square footage for the lot of 7,000. For medium density, which is the next greater one, we're looking at 9,000, and then for the low density, which is the larger single family lots, that is 11,000.
Thank you.
Any other council member? Okay, I'll move on to citizen comments. I will start with those in opposition. Brian Saunders. Please state your name and address. You'll have 3 minutes.
Again, Brian E. Saunders, 1700 Taro Valley Drive, and thank you for reminding me I had another opportunity to speak. So this, I can continue what I said. I won't repeat what I said earlier, but I'm not against development. We might think of an example of an urban environment with a 70-story building next to a farmhouse. That's what I see here. That's a bit of exaggeration, but I see high density is what I see. Savannah, a nice development. I'm not opposed to development, but I see the many homes next to those, like I said earlier, who want a little more space. I think the high density next to the rural residential is the conflict that we see, and I share with my neighbors. I do want to add to the lady who was speaking about the planning and zoning, please, is that because it was I won't say the name, it was a lady who said that she came here and there were several people trying to get into the meeting, and she was sitting in the parking lot on her iPhone, participating in the meeting, saying there were still people trying to get into the building. So there may not have been people trying to call, but there were people trying to get to that hearing that could not participate. She was frustrated, and I was a little frustrated. I was at my property trying to get in. So the consideration is look at less density. It's the high density next to rural residential that I have, and I think my good neighbors to the south would share that sentiment to consider. So with that, I'll just add that to it. And thank you, and then I will participate in a week. I'll prepare maybe a more deliberate, specific, respectful dialogue at the next meeting. But thank you. It's the high density next to rural residential that I have a conflict with. And I'm not against development. I'm a construction manager. We develop, it's growing. Republic's a great city. I see it. We're going to be good neighbors here, but I just want good planning, good zoning, because like I said earlier, it is forever. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak against? Okay. Is there anyone that would like to speak for the development?
I'm here if there's any additional questions.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a
Yes.
question? This is like a math question maybe for you. What would be the difference between high density and low density, just out of curiosity of how many homes you could fit on the 7.86 acres? Can you do that really fast?
That's tough. What do you got, 30?
Yeah.
Hang on.
Yeah. Do you know that, Gary?
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Just out of curiosity, I just thought that would be interesting to know and then maybe answer.
Yeah, so we have a maximum density for those three. So for the low density, which is that larger lot size, we're looking at 3.63 homes. The medium density is 4.84 homes, and this is per acre, and the high density is 6.22. That is the absolute maximum. That does not include things like the right-of-way that would take into consideration part of that acreage per acre.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Just a curiosity.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I've got another question for Ms. Haynes. I've just had a curiosity question with the zoning as the R1H. Now that only allows single-family dwellings, is that correct?
It's a little bit confusing when we're talking about low density, medium density, and then high density, which is typically associated with multifamily. But for the City of Republic, we actually have those three designations for single-family zoning designations. So we low, medium, and high. So when we're talking about multifamily, we actually call it out as multifamily residential, which is an R3 zoning district.
Okay.
So the only permitted uses in this zoning district are going to be just single family homes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, remember this is the first read, so if you have any questions, please get with the staff for next meeting. Okay. Moving on to 22-07. I need a motion and a second for the first reading of Bill 22-07 by title only.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Opposition. Abstain, I'm sorry. Okay, it's 5-0, 4. Okay. Laura, would you read the ordinance by title?
An ordinance of the City Council approving amendment of the zoning code and official map by changing the classification of approximately 62.90 acres located at 2561 South State Highway MM from Eclipse Event Center Plan Development District, PDD, to Hankins Farm Plan Development District, PDD.
Thank you. Staff will give an overview. Karen?
Thank you. The Hankins Plan Development District consists of 62.90 acres, and this is located at the northwest intersection of State Highway MM and East Sawyer Road. This is directly north of the current Amazon site. The PDD is a mixed-use development consisting of 10 commercial and light industrial manufacturing lots. The development plan, which you had just seen on the screen, contains provisions for new water, sanitary sewer, stormwater systems, and 2 new public streets. The development plan meets the requirements of the Plan Development District Ordinance, the Comprehensive Plan, the Transportation Plan, and then the city's recently adopted Master Water and Sewer Plans. Upon approval, the Builds Department will review the engineered plans for the actual infrastructure, which is the construction of the utilities and also the streets, which ultimately will result in the issuance of an infrastructure permit for construction. No evidence or testimony was presented in opposition of the development plan at the public hearing. The Planning and Zoning Commission did unanimously recommend approval, and staff is also recommending approval.
Thank you. Any questions from council?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
So I just want to remind the council that this is the development agreement that was established, I believe, with Tom Rankin. Mr. Derek Lee is the engineer of record. We've been partnering with. The city is partnering on these improvements. Again, this is immediately adjacent to Amazon. Across, for those that are, for reference, it's just north of the property on Sawyer Road. So just clarification, we are a partner on this project, but it does not affect the development. We need the rezoning. But just to remind you that this is a development agreement that we've partnered to work on the utilities and the infrastructure of this site that will create potentially more commercial space and more job creation along MM.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going to go ahead with citizen comments. For are any opposed, please come to the podium, state your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes. Seeing none, I'll go those in favor. Is Mr. Derek Lee?
Just if you have any questions, I represent the owner.
All right, thank you. Are there any others in favor of? Okay. Close citizen comments. And remember, this is the first read, so if you have any questions, please get with the staff before next meeting. Okay. Okay, moving on to ordinance 22-08. I need a motion and a second for the first read of bill 22-08 by title only.
Motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay. Laura, will you read the ordinance by title?
An ordinance of the City Council approving amendment of the zoning code and official map by changing the classification of approximately 10.20 acres located at 7294 West Farm Road 144 from agricultural AG to heavy industrial, M2.
Thank you. Staff is here to give an overview. Ms. Karen?
Thank you. Springfield Rugby Football Club has requested the rezoning of approximately 10.20 acres from agricultural to heavy industrial, or M2. The subject property is surrounded by heavy industrial to the east, general commercial to the west, Greene County agricultural to the north, and then James River Expressway to the south. Convoy of Hope is in the process of acquiring the reference property and does intend to incorporate the property into their overall master plan. The city's water and sanitary sewer systems can adequately serve a potential development at this location. No testimony or evidence was presented at the public hearing in opposition of the rezoning, and then staff is recommending approval this evening.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Seeing none, I will move on to citizen comments. I'll start with those opposed. Seeing none, I'll move on to those in favor. Mr. Jared Rasmussen.
I'm just here for representative applicant.
Okay, thank you. Any other in favor of? All right, they'll close citizen participation. Remember, this is the first read, so if you have any questions, please get with the staff before the next meeting. All right, we'll move on to 1122-10. I need a motion and a second for the first read of Bill 2210.
Motion.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I think we're on 09. Oh, 09? I think we skipped one.
Oh, did I skip it? Oh, I'm sorry. It's 22-09.
Sorry.
I'm wrong. Okay, motion carried 5-0. Staff is here. Karen?
Thank you. S6 Tiger Creek has applied for the rezoning of approximately 40 acres located at 3445 East Hine Street. This is a rezone from medium-density single-family residential to high-density single-family residential. The subject property is surrounded by a medium-density single-family residential to the west, which is the Liberty subdivision, Liberty Place subdivision, Greene County Agricultural to the east and to the north, and both Greene County and city agricultural properties located directly south. The city's water and sanitary sewer systems can serve potential development at this location. Development of the property will require the relocation of the existing lift station in Liberty Place 2, which is directly to the west. And the cost of that move to this site is the burden of the developer. A traffic study was required for the rezoning annexation, which was reviewed by the city engineer for adherence to the city's transportation plan and the adopted transportation maps. All improvements will be contained on the actual site per the full build-out associated with the transportation study. Testimony provided at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting concerned traffic generation primarily. The Planning and Zoning Commission did unanimously recommend approval, as does staff.
Thank you. Did I skip the ordinance reading? Did she read this one?
Did she read the ordinance?
Yeah.
Okay.
She did? Okay.
Laura, just to clarify, did you read the title?
No.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. Laura, would you please read the ordinance by title?
An ordinance of the City Council approving amendment of the zoning code and official map by changing the classification of approximately 40 acres located at 3445 East Hine Street from medium-density single-family residential R1M to high-density single-family residential R1H.
Thank you. And since Karen's already gave a report on it, I won't ask her to do it again. My error. Any questions from council?
Is there, you mentioned the traffic concerns on there. What entry points or exit points will they have for the, off of Hines and off of South Wilson Creek?
May I?
Yes.
The traffic study did show that they will have 2 entrances, potentially off of Hines. No connection with no public streets or new public streets to ZZ, but we won't know the exact location until we get to the preliminary platting stage. We don't review potential locations actually during the land use or the rezoning stage.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Ms. Haynes, during the planning and zoning meeting, there were a couple different phone numbers that were mentioned in regards to concerns for traffic at Hines and Wilson's Creek Boulevard.
Yes.
Do you have those phone numbers by chance?
I don't know them. I bet Andrew might, but it would be the MoDOT district office.
I got the MoDOT number, and so I guess my question, clarification would be, which particular number in Greene County would we call to address concerns at ZZ and Hines?
Yes.
And I'm not trying to step out of this,
No.
it's just with the conversation that happened in planning and zoning.
Sure, yeah, you're good. Andrew Nelson, Builds Administrator. So I would say properly to voice a concern with the county, you would want to contact the Greene County Highway Department. And I don't know that number anymore off the top of my head, but it's readily available, and we can put that out there.
Okay.
And one comment I will make, and we've mentioned this to the council in our planning, is this is a intersection that we've identified as a potential cost share with MoDOT. So, the intent with the council's approval would be to apply for the governor's cost share to do an intersection improvement probably in 2023. We've identified that in the capital improvement plan. In the SIST fund, we had promised that we would take care of Hines Street with those funds. So that's a targeted intersection. So there's a partnership there to be had between MoDOT, ourselves, and Greene County.
In Greene County.
Yep.
Okay. I know that's primarily, there haven't been a lot of concerns addressed to me yet, but I know that definitely, especially even in the mornings, it's going to be hard for even an entrance on Hines to get in and out without traffic blocking it during those times. But no, I appreciate those phone numbers, and I appreciate the one in planning and zoning. So
yeah,
I will be making those known.
And then farther south, where there's intersections, going to have some work done as well, correct?
That's correct. At Farm Road 182, which is at the entrance to the battlefield, there's a programmed roundabout that I believe MoDOT will let late this spring, I believe, was the intent. So there's a partnership there between the battlefield and MoDOT to use some federal funding to improve that intersection as well.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I do anticipate this to be a roundabout. I don't see it being a signalized intersection. They've gone away from that. But as Andrew stated, the voters did in the SIST, I believe we allocated $2 million. So we're going to pledge possibly $1 million of that allocation to the cost share with the governor's cost share program to potentially do that. So really, this particular development, we're not asking any of that because they didn't create that challenge. And so that's something that we're going to the state and the city. The voters gave us those funds to do that. So that's something that they did vote in 2017. If someone asked, there are funds allocated, I believe $2 million to improve Hines. And then we're going to also work with Lynn and Hines. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, all citizen comments?
There's only 2 in favor that you address.
Okay, we'll start with those in favor. Start with Greg Willock.
Yes, my name is Greg Whitlock. I'm with Whitlock Engineering. Address is 2131 West Republic Road in Springfield. We're proposing to rezone this to high density from medium density, and generally keep the same layout that that was approved back in 2005, just increase the lot count. We looked at currently the way it's laid out, there's 110 lots. We anticipate we can increase that to 120 lots. So kind of like your question earlier, from medium to high density, that net increase for the 40 acres, the most we could squeeze out was 10 additional lots. So we plan on having 2 connections to Hines. The traffic study indicated that both of those connections would have a level of service A. We'll also have a connection to Colonial Street in Liberty Place Phase 2. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Okay.
Stu Stinger.
Stu Stinger.
Hi, I'm Stu Stinger, 5051 South National in Springfield, Missouri. Just wanted to introduce myself and answer any questions. I'm the owner and the developer of the 40 acres, and we're looking forward to have a nice residential subdivision there. Any questions for me, I'll be at the meetings.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Not a question, just clarification. We're also, the developers, this property has sit there for quite some time because there was a sewer challenge and they're relocating the lift station. So part of the change in density too is because that cost of that lift station is not free. So to recover the cost of that is probably explains the density change. So sometimes making those work, it sit there vacant for a long time for a reason, but the cost to relocate that lift station, so picking up the additional 10 lots to help cover that. Just want to clarify, like, what would be some of the challenges of utilizing that lot and keeping it the medium density would be associated with the cost of that lift station that's been sitting there idle, because this property's been looked at multiple times. We've tried to work with developers. Even the city looked at purchasing that for a potential fire station at one time. And so just want to bring that out for clarification. I am correct on that.
That is correct.
Okay.
And one thing I'll bring up is in general, and this is not science or engineering or anything like that, but our real estate partners in the city indicate that there is a trend of desirability, and maybe Stu could speak to that, of smaller lots. So we're seeing a trend of, even if a development doesn't have an increase in density of homes, there is a trend that there's a desire for a smaller lot. So we even see some subdivisions that just have smaller lots and maybe more green space. So I think there's a trend that may continue there.
Thank you. Okay, is there any citizens? We speak again. I mean, I did, never mind.
You're good.
Yeah. Remember this first read, so if you have any questions, please get with staff before the next meeting. All right, moving on to Bill 22-10. I need a motion and a second for the first read of Bill 2210 by title only.
Motion.
Second.
Have a motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Passes 5-0. Laura, will you please read the title by title?
An ordinance of the City Council vacating a 385-foot portion of North Brookline Avenue located east of State Highway MM.
Okay, the staff is here to give us an overview. Karen?
Thank you. The Builds Department is requesting the vacation of approximately 385 feet of North Brookline Avenue. This is located east of State Highway MM. And the city street currently provides access to 2 private parcels and is a dead-end street. The adjacent properties were recently purchased by the same developer with the intent to develop a mixed-use development on the property. The vacated right-of-way, should it be approved, will be returned to the developer equally on both lots. The remainder of the southern portion of the street will continue to have access to State Highway MM and will continue to be a city street. North Brookline Avenue then will dead end into the potential development. No opposition or comment was presented at the public hearing at the Planning and Zoning Commission. They did unanimously recommend approval, and staff is also recommending approval.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Seeing none, remember,
This first
Yeah.
read.
remember this is the first read, so if you have any questions, please get with the staff before the next meeting. Moving on to 22-11. I need a motion and a second for the first read of Bill 2211 by title only.
Motion.
Second.
Have a motion and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. Passes 5-0. Laura, will you read the title by the ordinance by title only?
An ordinance of the City Council approving amendment of the zoning code and official map by changing the classification of approximately 29.39 acres located at the 2500 block of South State Highway MM from General Commercial C2 and Agricultural AG to Iron Grain District Plan Development District PDD.
Thank you. Staff is here to give us an overview. Karen?
Thank you. The Iron Grain PDD consists of 29.390 acres. This is at the northeast intersection of State Highway MM and East Sawyer Road. The PDD is a mixed-use development consisting of 5 areas of commercial and residential development. Permitted uses include those uses within the general commercial or C2 and multifamily R3 zoning districts, and may include uses such as retail centers, gas stations, restaurant, a hotel, and apartments. The development plan contains provisions for all new water, sanitary sewer, and stormwater systems to serve the potential development. The development plan does meet the requirements of the Plan Development District Ordinance, the Comprehensive Plan, the Transportation Plan, and then also the city's master water and sewer plans. Upon approval, the Builds Department will review the engineered plans for infrastructure, which ultimately will result in the issuance of an infrastructure permit and then separate building permits for each potential building on the location. No evidence or testimony was presented in opposition of the development plan at the public hearing at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting recently. They did unanimously recommend approval, as does staff.
Thank you. Any questions from council? Okay. Remember, this is first read, so if you have any questions, please let staff know before the next meeting. Okay, we'll move on to other business resolutions. A resolution of the City Council approving a preliminary plat for Republic Industrial Subdivision, a subdivision consisting of approximately 37.98 acres located on South State Highway MM and West Farm Road 144. I need a motion and a second to take up resolution R-22-R-07.
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Passes 5-0. Staff is here to present on it.
Mr. Mayor, I think we had one to speak in support of the last agenda item. I don't know if we want to move back to address that or not.
It just says representing the owner. Did you want to speak for it?
Okay, just making sure.
All right, thank you. Okay, Karen?
Yes.
So we need to put her on the agenda roll and let her speak. You're good.
Thank you. Asset Holdings Group LLC and Monad Apartments are requesting the review and approval of a preliminary plat for the 37.98 acres. This is for the Republic Industrial Subdivision located on State Highway MM and West Farm Road 144. It does consist of 8 industrial lots that were recently zoned heavy manufacturing, or M2. The preliminary plat does include streets, all utilities to serve the lots, and also infrastructure. The preliminary plat has been reviewed for compliance with municipal code, the comprehensive plan, and all other applicable city codes and regulations. The plat was recently reviewed by the Planning and Zoning Commission. They did vote unanimously to recommend approval, as does staff.
Thank you. Any questions or discussions from council?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I know we discussed last time the two plots there that are outlined there. What are those zoned? I couldn't remember what we did with on Farm Road 144. Those two cutouts there, the two.
The two rectangles
Yep.
that are cut out from the blue area, those are still single-family residential zoned parcels that are not owned by this particular developer.
Okay.
They are zoned residential, medium-density residential.
Okay. And the ones that and those are the ones that the developer bought and then were.
Yes,
Yep,
you
okay.
just recently rezoned those to M2, which allowed those 3 parcels to now be incorporated into the overall preliminary plat for the subdivision.
Thanks.
Any other questions or discussion? All right, since this is a resolution, I will call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Passes 5-0. All right, moving on to resolution, I'm sorry. Yeah. 21-R-40. To amend, I'm sorry.
22-R08.
Oh, okay. Okay, 22-R-08, a resolution of the City Council to amend Resolution 21-R-40 and to adopt the affidavit of Scrivener's error in Resolution 21-R-40. I need a motion and a second.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. Passes 5-0. Okay. Karen?
Thank you. Last one, I promise. The dedication of right-of-way consisting of the 0.29 acres for the former site of the Brookline City Hall was approved by council back on September 21st of last year. It was, we did have information that there was an actual Scrivener's error. It was a typo in the legal description, which does affect the overall dedication of right-of-way for that particular property. So what this does, the Scrivener's error in the affidavit does make that correction so that we can do the re-recording of that, and it would then be correct and legal.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions or discussion from council? Seeing none, I will call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? And any abstentions? Resolution passes 5-0. Okay, moving on to the resolution 22-R-09, a resolution of the City Council authorizing, I'm sorry, let me back up here. I got ahead of myself. I need a motion and a second to take up resolution 22-R-09.
Motion.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes 5-0. Andrew will present.
Thank you. If council will recall, we just finalized our bonds with Stiefel in the amount of 42 million. Well, actually, I'll take that back. There's a piece of those bonds that's not included in this resolution, and that was for the construction of the new building. So that contract was a contract that council approved previously with Ross Construction. So tonight we're talking about 42.8 million for wastewater services. So there are actually 5 individual design build contracts that we're approving tonight, not to exceed the bonding amount. So just in general, there's the big piece is the compliance at the wastewater treatment plant, which we know is important to Mayor Russell to keep him out of trouble with MDNR. And then there are design for our full expansion of our wastewater treatment plant. And then there are 3 collection system projects, the bulk of that being improvements from the McElhaney lift station all the way to Schuler Creek. And that's approximately 2 miles of collection improvements. So I don't want to downplay the size of that, even though in the scope of cost, it's not the biggest bulk. It is by far the most invasive to the community. So there'll be a lot to hear about those projects. We'll be active. We'll be knocking on doors, putting out information, but a lot of construction to go on along with that.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion from council?
Mayor, Andrew, so this, the bond would cover to get us back in compliance and some additional infrastructure. So
That's correct. The immediate compliance is mostly at the wastewater treatment plant. The rest of it's related to capacity, but it's really an effort to stay in compliance. So we don't want to get into compliance and then, 5 years down the road be facing the same problem. So it's a little bit of forward, committing capacity for our growth.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, I will go ahead and call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes 5-0. Okay, move on to reports from staff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, great job tonight. I know you're thrown into this, working through it. Mayor Russell is at a family event, which is where he should be, taking care of his family, watching his boy play basketball. It's a championship game, and so I'm glad that he could do that. So thank you for stepping in. I will tell you this, that I know we vote through these things, that we just voted for 43 million, our projects of $43 million, and I think I've said this before this council before, that it's always concerning when you realize you're putting your community into debt, but when you realize you're kind of fixing a 2011 compliance issue, it's not easy. So I will tell you that Andrew and I continue to work on our efforts for additional funding to help offset the cost. But our price of that fee is still $48 million. And so finding additional funds, because the total ask, if you all recall, the total projects that we have ranged as high as 150 million. So we're going to continue to find ways, and we're being very studious, I guess, and diligent in those efforts to continue to work with our legislative friends in Jefferson City, and hopefully we'll have some reports back as to those efforts in the coming months. I will remind everyone next Tuesday night, February, we're not going back this year, February 22nd at 6 o'clock at the community center, where we will be going over these same agenda items again on the second read. We'll have that discussion, and then we'll be talking about the trail. And so those that are interested in that effort, I would say this is part of our full transparency piece to give people the opportunity to come out and visit to discuss what that project is. And looking forward to having that discussion next Tuesday night. But we will make sure that it is clear when it comes to that location to make sure there's not any discrepancies. I hope everyone starts to get feeling better so that we have a lot of sickness, not just we've had it in our staff, but we've also seen it on our council. Just want to thank the council. We do have a lot of growth and development going on. There's a lot of questions that go on with that. And our crowds have gotten bigger since 2016, and the total space that we utilize to have these meetings and more participation. It's good to have feedback as to what we're doing with the development, to ask the questions as to how do our community and how do they find out information. I'm glad our website provides some. We can always do better and grow into that, which we're constantly working on. But with that, I just want to thank you for a job well done, and the staff for their work, and everybody. There's a lot of engineering groups in the room tonight, so I think it signifies all that we're working on. Stu, thank you for your investment to take a property again that was sitting there, and for all the development community. We are hosting a banquet in March, I believe, for the development community to talk to real estate agents, developers, anyone, builders, anything, to get feedback as to what we're doing and how we're doing it well, what we can improve on, talk about where we're going. So we will have that information that will be going out shortly. We are going to be sending out a survey and a questionnaire to go with it to share with the feedback that we're learning. We always believe we can learn and grow in the development process, working with those that are making not just small investments, but several millions of dollars worth of investments in our community. It's good for us not just to sit there and say everything's going great, also to gauge and figure out what we're hearing in the development community. So that's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other reports from staff? Seeing none, reports from council?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I would just like to, great job this evening, Mr. Mayor. It's exciting, on our agenda, there's so much great stuff going on, but of course, there are a few things and issues that come up along, so I appreciate all of the citizens that came to planning and zoning and the citizens that came here this evening to talk with us and give us their view. So thank you very much.
Any other council?
Mr. Mayor, last time I'll bring it up, great job on the bonds. I know that we've talked about that several times, but staff did a great job getting that set up, and then the demand for the bonds just speaks that people want to spend money in Republic, and I think we're seeing that with some of the developers here too, so good stuff.
Thank you. Well, my only report is that I appreciate all the citizens that came tonight and spoke, and we do want to hear your comments, and we do take it seriously. So again, thank you, and not to forget next Tuesday night, because we will have a council meeting as well as the meeting on the trail, which was the mayor did tell the citizens that came and spoke on that we would have it, and we are. And thank goodness he'll be back next week, so he could take that one. Other than that, I have nothing